That's a great shot.
I'm like you, I'm space obsessed. Like honestly.
Me too.
Yeah. I'm like that. Everything that I do relates back to either space, Star Trek, aliens. And that's going to lead me to my first question to you about your latest project. Could you tell us about your latest release, The Story of the Flight Route to Mars?
Well, what it is it's a story. I wanted to try something different, and just do some minimalist ideals and put them all together and tie a storyline, around them, or tie the music around a little storyline,
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what I've done with this album. I'm very happy with it. I really love it a lot. I think it speaks to the ins and outs and the ups and downs of space, future space travel, and that's how it came about.
Yeah, I mean, I love the whole concept. I love the name, especially, what's going on with NASA right now as well. They're preparing to eventually send people to Mars. And, listening to the album, there was a few tracks that I like. Some of my favorites would be like, I loved Ion Drive, Gamma Ray Burst, Radio Galaxy. And another one that I found really interesting was the collaboration you done with Susan Burgess, I'll Remember You With Love, because I know she's a local Philly girl. And I remember seeing her in New York. She was singing with Norman Connors.
Right.
So I noticed that connection there. I was like, man, that's really cool. So I noticed. So was that part of the project? You wanted to bring in some local talent as well? Was that?
Oh, yeah. And I've worked with her live also, And what I wanted to do was be as inclusive as I could with the local talent. And what I will do is I will actually send you an album, because it has all the people that I worked with and many bios and pictures of them on the actual album itself,
Oh, wow.
Or I'll send you an album, but immediately when we're done this, I'll take a picture of that part of the album panel with all their pictures and send it to you. Yes, and I really love her voice and the texture of her voice, and I really thought that it fit the song I was writing for the crash scene,
Yeah.
And her voice is on the crash scene, and the person that's speaking to her is one of the primary software engineers for NASA and JPL. He's actually writing the software for the Orion missions in 23 and 24 to the moon.
Wow.
He's the guy that says the comms are up on.
Yeah, no, because when you listen to it, it's like the story, and I feel like you're getting taken on a journey with the album, and I love that element. I love the whole. Well, I'm space crazy as well, so I just love the whole journey, and the little things I noticed, like Suzanne Burgess, but that as well about God. Having that guy, some of NASA's finest, actually.
How I met him was they invited me to NASA JPL in California because they used this old song I did called Life on Mars to wake up the Mars rover Curiosity on Mars. And they wanted me there when they had put it on their playlist to wake up Curiosity. And that's how I met him. Yeah.
Wow. Oh my God. I'm like hearing these stories. I'm like, man, I'm going to fall over. Thank God I'm sitting down. Wow. Because life on Mars is, I've spoken to you before. We spoke a while back. But I remember, life on Mars for me, like that whole, oh my God. I love your whole body of work, and I love the continuous space theme that, you see weaving in and out. And, that was my next thing. So with the recent album, what was the process of recording these records? Is there anything like, how did you all meet up? How did it all come about? Did you all just meet in the studio? Did you have to?
Well, no, what I did was I had gone through a process where I really needed to focus on music and creativity. So I started writing the songs and, creating the melodies and the words and based on, a storyline, from one end to the next. How does a ship take off? What happens what's going to go on in outer space while they're traveling to Mars? What will they be doing? What's the travel time really going to be like in over 200 years from now? Because right now the travel time to Mars is between 5 and 6 months, but I figured by then it'd be down to half that,
Yeah.
and so on and so forth, and trying to factor into songs and, what people would be doing and how they would communicate and what they would think about and, would they reflect on Earth and everything. That's what the Christmas song is about, reminding people of, what's happening on Earth, and that kind of thing. And so, it's sort of like a musical, semi-opera kind of thing, but in outer space.
Wins in my book. Everything I love. You give me a bit of soul vibes, you give me space, you give me Dexter Wansel, the Philly sound. I'm all over it. Honestly, it's a beautiful piece of work, and I think
Thank you.
Anyone, if you haven't listened to it, go and listen. Where's the best places for people listening in to go?
Well, they can listen to it anywhere now. It got released a couple of weeks ago, and so it's on Spotify, Tidal, Deezer, iTunes, Amazon Music, you name it, it's out there.
People can buy the CD as well. They can buy.
Sure, they can buy the CD format as well. From all they got to do is go to dexterwansel.com, and it's right there.
I'll make sure that's included in the link.
Yeah, and also it's at Digital Jukebox Records. Mark Anthony signed me up to his label over there, and they've got it at their store, and Sony is distributing it. So yeah, hopefully in time people might find it, and I hope they enjoy it.
I'm sure they will. I mean, I had it on. It feels very much, as I previously said, like being taken on a journey, and I love that when you listen to an album and you feel like it's telling a story. It's got the musical element, and I just think that combination of things, it's a beautiful piece of work. So my next question, I remember, again, I've spoken to you previously, we spoke about space, and I remember you saying to me you used to look up into the stars. Where did it all begin for you? And I want to talk a little bit about life on Mars as well. Let's dive into that as well.
Well, where it all began for me was part of my life as a kid between North Philadelphia and Lewis, Delaware. Lewis, Delaware is a farmland in the state of Delaware in the United States. And I grew up, part of my life there as a kid was growing up there, working on the farm. And one night I saw a meteor shower, but not like your normal, where you might see 1 or 2 meteors every minute or something. This was more like 15, 20 meteors every minute,
Wow.
And it was like, I thought stuff was falling from the sky as a kid, so I've lived that ever since, and so I've been an amateur stargazer for most of my life since then. I have a telescope. I have an Orion 10-inch Sky Quest where I took pictures of the moon recently. I'll send you one.
Oh, please do. Honestly, yeah. You'll make my year.
Yeah. And
honestly, you will really make me a happy girl, please.
So yeah, I'll send you a couple of those pictures along with that panel picture of the of everybody's mini bios and pictures. And so yeah, so I mean that has gone nowhere. And what I had heard this song, I was somewhere with this band I was playing with, and one of the guys was playing this a song called "Is There Life on Mars?" And my whole thing was David Bowie. And my whole thing was, of course, there's life on Mars. I mean, are the planets round? I mean, do we all share the same stuff? And so I said, well, I'm going to write a song called Life on Mars. So that same year, 74, 75, I wrote that song. It's kind of sat in the can until I would sign off with Philly International, and then they put it out in '76.
Yeah, it's a good, again, one of my go-to pieces. I just, especially within my family, like my family, we're all soul obsessed, you know, heavily into the sound of Philadelphia, and you know that piece of work. It's one that's played frequently within the Probert household, you know.
Oh, thanks.
I mean that, and I went to, I seen you before all the lockdown stuff at the Jazz Cafe in London, and I remember
Right.
you playing that live, and I was just like goosebumps, total goosebumps. I felt like I was seeing stars. But yeah,
Yeah.
my next question. So, what would you say are some of your biggest achievements, Dexter, to date? What's the things like your biggest achievements, most proud of? You know, what are standout moments for you?
My standout moment is when I was a kid from the age of 8 till about 13. I was a little errand boy backstage at the Uptown Theater in Philadelphia, which was much like the Regal in Chicago or the Apollo in New York or the Fox in Washington, you know, where Black entertainers could go and perform not just for a day or two, but be there for a week and a half to 2 weeks in one place every night, you know, do shows and do midnight shows on Saturday. And I got to work with some of the great artists from jazz to R&B, you name it, I worked with them. Great comedians. I worked the very first Motortown review. I used to hold Stevie Wonder's hand backstage until Shorty Long came and got him and put him behind the drums that first year when he had fingertips. Me and Jimi Hendrix used to play slap leather behind stage because he was so laid back, you know. He would always stay backstage between the shows while everybody else would go get something to eat or something like that, you know. And I got to work with Miles Davis, and I got to work with Ike and Tina Turner's review, and the King Records tour. That was one of my favorite tours because, you know, on King Records, of course, the big act back in the late 50s was James Brown and the Famous Flames. So I would hold towels for James Brown while he would dance off stage, grab a towel, wipe his face, and throw it back in mine, you know. And so those are as far as music. And then Doc Bagby and Dave Babe Cortez teaching me my first chords on the organ. And early on, that's what to this day carries me forward. And then when I got in school and started playing the cello, doing theory, harmony, and composition, Miss Colbert, who was my teacher there, her memory carries me forward. And then me and my best friend, Stanley Clark, starting our first little bands together in junior high school, and how we progressed musically until I went into the Army, those memories carried me forth. And then when I got out of the Army in 1970 and started sitting in Sigma Sound recording studios trying to get a session as a keyboard player, and those memories carried me forward because I began programming their Putney synthesizer. That one day an engineer came down and said, "Do you know anything about a synthesizer?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "What you got?" He said, "Well, we have a Putney." I said, "Oh, yeah." Had no clue, but they set me up and I got a sine wave. And after a few weeks, they started paying me $50, you know, to program it for sessions, you know, and every time, you know, so, and that got me into a meeting with the members of MFSB. Two members, early members, were Carl and Roland Chambers, and they asked me to join their group, Yellow Sunshine. And so in 72, I joined Yellow Sunshine, and Gamble signed them to his Gamble Records, which became Philly International. And we signed, and I did an album with Yellow Sunshine as a member. And then I met Bunny Sigler and started writing songs with him. And he asked me to join his group Instant Funk, which I did in 74. And we started touring with Bunny Sigler. And then in 75, me and T-Life formed Mills and Mills production company. And one of the families, the King family that came through, had a daughter that we called Bubbles, and she would come into our office and clean our office, but she would always sing. And T Life, him and I broke up, but he went on and signed her and signed Bubbles, and they changed the name to Evelyn Champagne King. And so we did. And so I helped produce the very first Bubbles Evelyn album, and I did the chord charts for The Show Is Over and for Shane. And but by then I had started producing and arranging for the artists at PIR. I signed off at PIR and started working with all the producers and the artists there, and did albums for each and every artist that was on the label, as a producer, arranger, writer.
Wow.
And so they liked Life on Mars, and they told me to go ahead and do an album, and I did the album. And all the stuff that you hear on those albums I did, except for where you hear me singing, except for 1 Million Miles from the Ground. They were all demos for other artists that got rejected. So I took the demos, and I would add strings and horns or background vocals or what have you, and put them on my albums. Hey, it worked.
Absolutely. No, I love, wow, it's just so incredible to hear these. I'm like, my mind is totally blown.
Yeah, at PIR, between the songs, the sessions I did, the arrangements, the compositions, and I did over 400 things for PIR.
Wow.
Yeah.
God, you've got some stories, Dexter. Every time I speak to you, I know this is the second time I've spoken to you, but honestly, the stories, like even that little thing there, like Bubbles. Oh yeah, Evelyn Champagne King. It's like, what?
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. I love
it. Calling her Bubbles when, she would sing in while she was cleaning out our little office, that we had together.
Oh,
yeah, he worked with her, continued to work with her. And of course, she went on and started working with Kashif at one point, and they had hits together. I also became the A&R director at Philly International. And when I was a kid working at the Uptown, some of the artists I would see later on at Philly International. Like I worked for the Impressions when Jerry Butler was still with them. And then Jerry Butler, of course, went to PIR. And when he came back and did another album, I got to work with him. And Gamble walked into my office and he said, Jerry, I want to introduce you to Dexter. And he's going to, help you write some arrangements, do some productions. And Jerry looked at me and said, Dexter, you still ain't combing your hair? Because he remembered me as a kid, at the Uptown. So yeah, I have many wonderful memories that have inspired me to continue with music and, to try to be creative and try to, help folks on a daily basis, get through their lives. Music is very important. All creativity, books, music, paintings, art, architecture, it's all helped us to get through life.
Absolutely. And it's something that we're always aware of, but even more so in the last year and a half where, art and creativity has been an outlet for a lot of people, to get through these challenging times. And yeah, we'd be in a lot darker world if we didn't have that creativity in the arts. We need it to keep moving forward. It's a important part of the
Yeah.
We need it. It's part of us. So my next question was going to be, who would you class or what would you class are your biggest inspirations?
Well, there's a guy that most people don't know. His name is Doc Bagby. He was the organ player, the musical director at the Uptown from 1958 to about 1963. He showed me my first chords, and I would stand and hang out with the band, walk them across the street to Miss Pearl's, and we all ate. Being there and learning and watching him work with so many artists that came through there really inspired me. He arguably, musically, he was my greatest inspiration, but most people don't know who he is. I can tell you this. Honkabilly, that guitar bass plucking rock sound that so many people use. He arguably created, and he did sue Bill Haley in the comments for "Rock Around the Clock" because it was really his music, that they took off of one of his records that he had did in New York around 51 or 52, and most people don't know about him, but he really inspired me a lot. And I think growing up at the Uptown and working with all those artists, that's my mind is automatically going to go there. That truly inspired me. The bands that came through, the original when that first Motortown Review came through. That was the band that played in the studio on all those records that were a part of that tour. Of course, Barry stopped them from doing that, and they had to get other musicians. But working with I think they call themselves the Funk Brothers.
Yep.
Yeah.
This is a documentary.
Yeah, James Jameson on the bass and them guys. Oh, it was amazing. And working with all the jazz shows and seeing the artists that I worked with become such superstars like Aretha Franklin. She first came. She was singing with a trio when she first came to the Uptown. And don't ask me the name of the trio. I'd have to look it up. But this was before she was with Atlantic or anything like that. I think she was signed. She had a record out when she came to the Uptown. She was singing with a trio, and it was the trio's name featuring Aretha Franklin, And then she had out her own record. I think it was called. I can't remember what it was called. Take a look, something like that. And the same goes for other artists. Like when the first Motortown Review, it was Marvin. One of the names of the acts performing was Marvin and the Vandellas. Well, and the reason for that was because the Vandellas, Martha and the Vandellas, had only that year, 61 or 60, only had the one record out, but they were singing background on a lot of his hit records, on Marvin's hit records, like Stubborn Kind of Fella and Hitchhike and all that stuff. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So Marvin and the Vandellas on that show. So yeah, I have a lot of memories.
Yeah, a lot of amazing stories.
Yes, and some of the great groups that came through, like that were better than the groups with hits. Like there was a Philly group called the Vibrations that did so well on stage, and just wowed the audiences so much that whenever Georgie Woods had them on a show, they could have been on a show with Little Anthony and the Imperials, but still they would be the star.
Yeah.
Of the show because they were so great on stage, but they never had a hit record, that kind of thing, Of course, Little Anthony had hit records,
yeah.
And it was funny. I used to walk my mom, one of her close friends back then when I was just getting started was Billie Holiday. And Billie Holiday would perform at the VPA Club, but she loved coming, which was just a few doors down from the Uptown. But she loved coming to the Uptown and standing backstage watching the acts there. And I would walk her. One night I walked her through a snowstorm back to the VPA Club when I was a kid. Yeah. And her and my mom Billy would call her up and my mom would get dressed and disappear. So I asked my mom to this day, I would say to her, so, what was it like being with Billy? And she would look at me and she said, child, her and them dogs was crazy. And I would say, what do you mean her and them dogs? What dogs? And I didn't realize it, but now I've learned that Billy had little doggies she would travel with later on in life. Yeah. And even take out on stage.
I know how I feel with my cat. Take him while I'm DJing.
There you go. There you go. Yeah.
On the road. God. Oh, that's funny. And them dogs, I didn't know what you were going to say.
Yeah.
No, that's fab. So,
Yeah, so that I have tons of memories based on my childhood and and being there at the Uptown. My brain always goes back there.
yeah, it's very, I mean, those memories, I mean, you can't replace that type of thing. That's hearing these stories as well. It's just unbelievable. The people you've met, the people you've worked with, what you've achieved throughout your career. It really is incredible. And my next question was going to be, so you've had the recent album. What can we expect in the future? Do you have any projects in the pipeline? What is in the works for Dexter Wansel?
Well, I've of course I'm with the label, and I've got to do 2 more albums with them at some point, and I'm looking forward to that. And of course, working with folks, touring, doing shows, hopefully I'll be back in over there sometime in August, and doing some performances, and promoting the album, and basically trying to keep it going. That's a phrase that a lot of the artists, old artists, would say to me. You got to keep it going.
Yeah. Keep that creativity going. Because I think it was a show came up. I think, is it Manchester came up?
Yes.
Is it Manchester?
Yes.
Where about in Manchester was it?
I can't remember the name of the place. I know that they're linked to the Jazz Cafe in London. Yeah. I think it's their venues.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm in Manchester. I'm doing Campsoul.
Cool.
Yeah, Campsoul on the 28th of August. I'm really looking forward to that. I really love festivals, because I think that people get to share a lot of great experiences, outdoor festivals,
Absolutely. And the other bands, and getting to meet people, and you've got shows planned as well, because that's the thing. You've just had this new album out. You want to be able to go and showcase it. You want to go and perform. So that's good, hearing that stuff. Was it August? Yes.
August the 28th at Campsoul. I don't remember the other dates for Manchester and London yet. I think the Jazz Cafe is on the 30th. Manchester might be on the 26th, but I'm not sure.
What I'll do is I'll get the info and I'll leave it in the comments, so anybody watching the video back.
Yeah. And there are other venues that now, as of a couple of days ago, are starting to reach out for us to do performances too. But I think we're going to have to push that back till next year,
Yeah.
Just based on, I know that they're totally opening up over there in a few weeks or something like that, Yeah. But still, to be on the safe side, I think we're going to push stuff back.
Yeah. Always important to be on the safe side. And the thing is, things will start to open up again. It'll be good when we can all dance and go to live performances. It's something I know myself I've really, really missed. And I've got one final question. Oh no, I know. I missed seeing you live in concert. Honestly, that was my last concert before everything went crazy. Was you in the Jazz Cafe?
Yeah, mine's also.
Phenomenal.
Well, no, our last was in Paris. We did New Morning in Paris. And then we left out of Paris on the 14th of February, and the world changed.
It just was crazy. It's so fast as well. It's still sometimes think it's been like a never-ending nightmare for so long, but hopefully we're going to get through it. So I've got one last question for you, Dexter.
Okay.
So if you were on a desert island and you could only take 3 records with you, what would you take? I know that's a tough question, and I would struggle if somebody asked me that, but I thought I'd give it a go. It's a tough one. It's a tough one.
Wow. I would take an album of, I think I would take Marvin Gaye's "What's Going On with Me." I think that's a transitional album, you know. Woo!
It's so tough. See, whenever I get asked this, I'm just like,
there's a Scottish composer named Ray Vaughan Williams. I think I'd take an album of his works. And an album of jazz greatest hits.
there we go. You managed the three. It's better than what I could do. Did you see for the second one? Did you say Scottish composer?
Yeah, Ray Vaughan Williams.
Scotland. That's where I'm from.
Really?
Yeah, Scotland.
Oh, okay.
That's where I am just now. I live in Edinburgh, so Scotland. I thought, did he say Scottish? I was like, I thought I heard him say Scottish. So yeah.
I really like his works a lot. His works like A Lark Ascending, his variations on a theme. It's beautiful the way he writes and orchestrates. I really like it.
I'll need to check him out. But I heard the Scottish. I was like, that's where I am just now. And although this background suggests otherwise, it's been absolutely pouring of rain. We had flooding.
I heard about it.
It's so bad outside. It's just, I see grey skies, lots of rain. So I'm just going to imagine that I'm up on the space station just chilling out for dinner somewhere else. But no, listen, it's been so fantastic talking to you. And I cannot
really appreciate it. I thought this was going to be an audio, so that's why I was up in the dark there.
You're all good.
If I ran down here, the visual would be much better, you know.
No, it's all good. It's always a pleasure speaking to you. And again, hearing these stories, I get goosebumps. I mean, this is all the music that I love, and hearing the stories behind it, I'm just mind blown.
Yeah. Well, I've been blessed to be around some wonderful, all the artists, and not just the artists, but the musicians, like all the members of MFSB and the various bands I've worked with over the decades, and conductors and arrangers who listened to or who looked at, like Bobby Martin would check my charts for me and say, listen, I think you might want to voice the horns differently here, that kind of thing. And that mentorship really meant such, him and Tom Bell were my arranger mentors,
Yeah. And they were blessed to have been around you as well. These people, everyone you've worked with.
I was honored to really, to really have that. I'm a fan. See, that's the thing. I'm a big fan of musicians and vocalists, and I strive to work with them. That's why there are so many musicians and vocalists on my album, on my albums. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I could try to do like where I just play piano on every song and produce and arrange, and that's it. You know what I'm saying? But no, I want to share. I want to be a part of their gifts. You know what I'm saying? I want to be there with them, So that's how it works for me.
No, I love it. I love it. And as I say, another great album, The Story of the Flight Crew to Mars, another one to add to your catalogue. But again, as always, pleasure speaking to you. Great to catch up. And I cannot wait to see you soon.
All right. Thank you, Natasha. Have a blessed evening.
You take care, darling. Thank you so much.
And thank you.